All right, we are about to go live. Okay, we are live. Woohoo! So excited to be here today. Welcome everybody to Champ Chat. We are super excited that you decided to join us today, and I'm super excited to introduce you to our guests. Our topic is so important, we might not get through everything today in just 30 minutes. Our topic is called Empower People Through Positive Culture. That is a mouthful, and there's a lot to discuss. I'm Michele Beauchamp. My company is called the Champ Group, and I partner with companies to help their leaders build their people skills so that they can build cultures that thrive. And I'm excited because now I can say that I'm an author too. And I have a new book coming out called Relearn Leadership, and you'll learn more about that. Audience, we want to encourage you to go ahead and start letting us know you are here in the comments area. Let us know you're here. Where are you calling in from? And as we go through the program, we want to encourage you to ask questions and put comments in, and we're going to make sure that we work really hard to address them. So thank you for coming. Here's what we know. We know you had a lot of other things you could have done today. And so you've chosen to be with us. And we really appreciate that. So I see some head nods, and I want to introduce you to our guest, because you know what? When we're finished today, you're going to say, you know what? That was a good investment in time, because these guests are some awesome, powerful, happen to be all women right now. So we really want to thank you all for coming. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves. Just who are you? And just real quick, what is it you do? Helena, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, yes. Thank you, Michele. I'm Helena Ferrari. I'm the CEO and managing consultant of the HRRX, and I help accelerate people to deliver faster results.
All right, there you go. People are excited about that. Thank you, Helena. And then I'm going to go over to Michele Bivens. We got a lot of Michelles here. So Michele Bivens, introduce yourself.
Yes, we have the Michele B and the Michele B today. So, yes, my name is Michele Bivens. I am the training director at Farmers and Merchants Bank, and Farmers and Merchants Bank is a regional bank located in Southern California, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Thank you for saying yes. And Farmers and Merchants Bank is a great bank. That's my bank, and they're awesome.
We appreciate your support, Michele.
Thank you. Yeah. And Anita, tell us who you are and what is it you do?
Thank you, Michele. Delighted to be here today. Anita Nygaard. I have an HR consulting firm, Core HR, and we work primarily with professional services businesses to help build positive and productive workplace cultures. Delighted to be here. What an important topic.
Such an important topic, and thank you all, all three of you, so much for being here today. And so let's get started. And again, audience, we want to remind you, let us know you're here so we can give you a shout out and welcome you. And also, as we're going through the program, make sure that you put in some comments and thoughts and questions that you have about what we're talking about. And so, what is company culture? That's a hot topic right now. Anita, I'm going to start with you to help us understand what is company culture. I know that it's such a big subject, and it is so important that it could determine whether or not people decide to stay with their company, or they decide, I don't like this culture, and so they decide to leave. So what is company culture? Let's start with that.
That's the best place to start. So what comprises company culture are several very key things. It includes the organization's mission and values, and it has to be more than words on a page. Leadership styles, expectations for employee behavior, your daily business operations, how you do business on a daily basis, whether with your internal customers or external, your decision-making processes, the physical workspace even, and more importantly, how all of your folks come together and collaborate to create a unique work environment.
Okay, that was a lot, Anita. That was a lot. Couple things you said too. One was behavior, like how are people behaving? Are they treating each other nicely? Are they scared? Feel like they're walking on eggshells? So that might be some of it. And then the other thing you said that I want to elaborate on just a little bit is that it could be their workspace. So what if they're working in a hybrid environment? How does that affect culture? What do you think about that?
Right. So, since the pandemic changed how teams work in so many ways, this really is the perfect time, if businesses haven't already done so, for leaders to rethink how to run their organizations and build a truly amazing culture. Because yes, the hybrid workplace, there is some collaboration that could get lost in translation. And it's that collaboration that acts as the glue and the DNA of the organization to help people really feel that they are belonging, that their contributions are valued, that they're included. And these are really good sticky factors to retain your talent, your valued talent.
And so I'm going to ask you this now. Why is it so important, right? So we now have a clarification about what it is, right? We know it's not anymore about free lunch and ping pong tables, right? Like it was a few years ago. So, I remember that a few years ago was about that, right? That is completely changed now. So why is culture so important?
There are many reasons why it's important. You touched on a few of them for attraction and retention, but I'll tell you, there's been a long time phrase out there that people leave bad managers. I'll tell you, people also leave bad cultures. So even if you have a great experience with your particular manager, if you're questioning the culture, if you feel that your company really hasn't embraced and branded their own employment culture, you're likely not to stay there for the long haul either.
And so I'm going to ask you this then, because I love it, because one thing's leading to another. Who's responsible for establishing culture? And we have another Michele in the background here. So if you can put this slide up, we'd like to take a look at that slide. Thank you.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Some people might say, well, it's my manager's job to make sure that the culture is good. And others might say, well, it's my leader's job. It's our job. Whose job is it? So Anita, tell us a little bit about this slide that we're showing now.
There are a lot of reasons why I like showing this slide, because it shows you how people's opinions really differ on whose responsibility, quote unquote, we use rabbit ears, it is. Sometimes leaders and managers will say, well, isn't that HR's responsibility?
Right.
Or folks might say, well, if the leaders and managers are on board, are the individual contributors supposed to be very passive? The truth is, it's everyone's responsibility. It does start at the top, because the leaders will set the tone for the organization. How invested are they to really create that mission and vision and live by it and hold people accountable for it? But it touches every part of the employee life cycle. It's employee recognition or celebration. It's the approach to employee performance. And these are all give and take types of areas. Employees should also have a lot of feedback into creating the mission and the values statement. So really, at the end of the day, it's everyone's job to build it and maintain it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying. This is a great slide too. And so I appreciate you sharing that. If you can take that down. Something that you touched on too, Anita, was the mission and values. Here's what I see happens a lot. And again, it's different if it's an in-person environment or hybrid environment or complete remote. However, most of the time, in my experience in corporate America, mission and values were on the wall and nobody paid attention to them.
Yeah.
So, right? So they were like, mission and values, what is that? Right. And so they weren't practicing, they didn't even know what they were. And so any of you that we have today, any of our panel, what have you seen and what can our audience do to make sure, because Anita, you said that everybody should participate in creating the mission and values. In my experience, that hasn't been the case. So what do you all think? What, Helena and Michele, what do you think about how leaders can engage employees so that everybody can buy in and practice those mission and value statements?
Well, I think sorry,
go ahead.
First, Michele.
Oh, thank you, Helena. I was going to say, I also, prior to coming to the bank, had a consulting business, and I saw the same thing that you have seen, Michele. Lots of plaques on the wall and not a lot of walking the talk. And then I came here, and I have to tell you, at Farmers and Merchants Bank, it's very different. And I believe the reasons are the leaders talk about the values a lot. They talk about it at manager meetings. They talk about it at employee meetings. We have them attend new hire orientation. They're part of our leadership program. And so they talk about how the importance of the values. And this is kind of a quirky thing, I guess. But at our bi-monthly manager meeting, we all recite the mission.
Okay.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I think that's really good insight. And just to add on to Michele, is like really helping the employees understand what the culture is and how they can exemplify it, and how their actions and behaviors of how they can all align together would be just an add-on that I've seen and that I share also with my clients. who also have differing behaviors and thought processes.
Exactly. And so what everybody's saying too is it's important to keep it top of mind. So involve everybody, right? Keep it top of mind and don't just make it be a plaque on the wall, right? So yeah, so awesome. So now we know more about what it is and who's responsible. Everybody's responsible. So guess what? Everybody gets a chance to talk about belonging and inclusion. Everybody gets a chance to participate. That's how it should be. And audience, you want to make sure and encourage you. Go ahead and put some comments in as we're going along. So I want to talk now about talent. Okay. So talent, that's who we're talking about. We're talking about the people who actually work there, right? So Helena, you've got some insights about how can we hire to make sure that the people that we hire are complementing the culture that everybody is working hard to develop and sustain. So I know in the past it was about, well, does this person fit in? And thank goodness we're getting away from the fit and we're moving toward how does this person add to our culture? So from fit to add. So share with us, what do people need to do? What can people do to make sure that we're hiring to complement the culture that we're working hard to create and sustain?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Michelle. So I kind of look at it from a two-prong approach. I look at it from the company perspective and also the candidate perspective. As Anita mentioned, our needs as people have really changed and evolved. And when we're thinking about joining a new company or staying, it's really moving towards more of a lifestyle choice. So it's not just personal and work, it's like lifestyle. So I kind of now share with companies to really recommend thinking it from the candidate experience of it's now a two-way conversation. It's like in our conversation of interviewing, I challenge my clients to think differently and recommend 3 different strategies. The first strategy is create a culture fit interview. Well, what does that mean? Create a positive interview experience. Ask open-ended questions like, describe the best culture you've ever worked in and why it was the best. This one question can really uncover the type of culture that they can thrive in. The second thing is people really want a connection. They want a connection to the company and to the leaders within the organization. And so I recommend to leaders who are in the hiring process, make it personal. Tell them a little bit more about your experience with the company and how you lead and communicate and have team-centric communication channels to set employees up for success, and how you support the culture and the different programs, mentorship, whatever it may look like, and make that part of your interview cycle. And then also to really establish a connection with who you're interviewing to come into the company, of sharing about the values and the cultural training and the programs and all of these things, to personalize it. Because in my experience, a lot of companies don't really share these things. And when people are now looking to join companies, these things are becoming more important, and choosing to stay is really around the leaders, the value, and the culture that's being created. So it's way more beyond the values on the wall, as you say. It's about the actions, the behaviors, and the program overall to support the employee experience, both internally and externally, when we talk about branding.
Yeah, I like that you said team-centric. Yeah, because that really kind of puts it in a nutshell. And the other thing that I wanted to add based on what you said is both people need to share. So I know that it's important when you're in an interview, sometimes you feel like you have to be ready to answer whatever they ask you. And the reality is people should go into the interview prepared to ask questions as well, right? So that they can find out, like, is that a company I want to be with? The same way that the employer is saying, is that a person I want to bring onto the team? Yeah. Thank you for that.
Exactly.
Michelle and Anita, anything you want to add to that?
I thought that was pretty well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. So here's what I want to do, kind of carrying on with that same theme there, Helena. Connection is a big challenge right now. And
Yes.
when we're talking about culture, we're talking about connection. And as Anita adhered to too, if you're in a hybrid environment, or if you don't come into the space at all, that becomes even more challenging, right? And it's real. I mean, we know that some people prefer to go into the office a couple days a week, and some prefer to never go in. And the truth from everything I've seen and heard and participated in with my clients is that leaders really want their people there. So there is a little bit of a gap right now in terms of where people are. But in terms of connecting, how do you propose people connect, regardless of the environment that they're in? So leaders connecting with their teams, and teams peer to peer connecting with each other, other departments. What kind of ideas or thoughts do you have about how we can do a better job connecting?
No, I think that's a great question, Michelle. I think there are several strategies that I recommend. I think for leaders, they really need to have a one-to-one cadence with every direct report.
Yeah.
At least once a month, I would say, and covering different areas. It's not just about, hey, how are you doing on your goals and objectives and your KPIs? It's like finding out how you're doing. Do you have any ideas that you think that might help? Tell me about anything that I can do as a leader to help you, to support you, and really setting up each individual success. And every individual is going to want to be recognized or valued in different ways. So really, from a leader perspective, start to understand those drivers for each individual. And also, as far as teams, in my experience as a leader, I've had weekly team meetings to talk about all of the accomplishments, the things that are coming forward, ideas, feedback. I think, honestly, this is a really good cadence. We don't come to work to do a bad job. What we want to do is we want clear expectations.
Right.
We want an open communication channel. We want to be rewarded and valued as a person of how we contribute to the business and to the overall company. So those are the types of things that I truly recommend. There's one interesting statistic, Michelle, that 52% of new hires will leave a company within the first year. So it's very, very important that leaders establish a protocol to check in on a regular basis so that doesn't happen.
Ooh, that's a scary statistic, Helena.
Yes, it's true.
Very, but what you said, though, is that leaders have the power to lower that statistic by connecting, by the building relationships.
Yes.
I love when you said, have a meeting at least once a month. And on a side note, a lot of leaders say, how do I do that? I don't have time, right? And like, we only have so much time in a day. It has to be a priority, though. So I agree with you. As often as possible, once a week, once a month for sure, as often as possible.
Well, Michelle, just as I want to add, I look at it, 75% of my success as a leader is based on my team's contributions. So I think leaders need to make it a priority because we can leverage other people's strengths and other people's expertise to help us even get bigger and better. So yes, thank you for bringing 100%. That up.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, this is a really big topic, and that's very important. People want to feel cared for.
Yes.
And when the leader gives them the time, even if it's 15 minutes, right? Doesn't have to be a long hour, right? Even if they give them the time, then they feel like, you know what? I know my leader has a lot on their plate. And they still give me time to listen to me. And what you also said, and then I'm going to move on, but you also said, don't just talk about your goals and objectives and your KPIs. Find out how the person's doing overall, like what's going on in their life that's making them happy, what might be causing them some harm or some frustration. So being able to elaborate on that too, based on what you said, Helena, connecting, that's what it's all about. So
Yes.
thank you so much. See, audience, I told you you're in for a treat. So here, now listen, we want to talk about taking employee development seriously, right? And this is near and dear to my heart because that's what I do in terms of teaching and coaching. And so, Michele, here's what I know about you. You have really done a phenomenal job helping Farmers and Merchants Bank take employee development seriously. You have a whole program that you do, and it's consistent. That's what I love about your program, is that it's consistent. So help our audience understand, what have you done? How have you done that to help them understand it's not an option? Offering employee development is not optional. It's not an expense that can be cut. It is serious. So help us understand that. You can see I'm passionate about that.
Well, I'm passionate about it too, Michele, so that
I
makes two
know.
of us.
I know.
So we talked earlier about the mission, and part of our mission is employee development. It literally is listed right in the mission. And so I feel like that really drives a certain level at the top. And then, as I also had mentioned, our executive team is very involved. We have a leadership program. They're very involved with that program, not only in supporting the program, but also in presenting at the program. Our CEO goes to lunch with us at the end as a kind of surprise to the graduates.
Nice.
And if you don't have the support at the top, it's very challenging. One of the things that many of my colleagues, or things that you might hear or read in articles, magazines, etc., is training departments tend to be, one of the first to be cut, right? When layoffs happen, out goes training.
Right.
That doesn't happen here. We just have a real focus on development. And if you don't have a focus on development at the top, it's going to really be very challenging for your L&D team to put together what they need to.
Right. So good job. And Michele, I read recently, it was an article that I recently saw in Forbes, which said that when managers are promoted, so one problem was managers were promoted too soon. What they meant by that was they did a good job on their tasks, and they did a good job, so they promoted them. However, the people who got promoted a lot of times weren't prepared to deal with the people, right? This is about people. And so they became frustrated because they didn't get the training and development that they needed, and then they quit even after they got a promotion. So that's a big challenge. And so that's going to bring me to my next question here, which is something that you're good at too. And Farmers and Merchants is good at. And what I love to, back to the other one, is it's part of the mission. The employee development is part of the mission. So that's where it starts, right? It starts at the top. So that's so exciting to hear. But Michele, it is so important to train the managers to coach, right? And that kind of ties in with what you were saying, Helena. Like, don't just have the one-on-one about the goals and the KPIs. Have it about them as a whole person. So what have you seen the impact to be, Michele, by offering coaching training to your managers?
I want to really just quickly tip off from what Helena, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
What I was saying. And with regards to coaching, not all managers know how to coach. So recently we did a survey specifically around career coaching within our branches, and the employees felt that they were not getting career coaching to the level that they expected. The managers thought they were doing a great job. Big gap. And so we presented this to those managers and said, where is the gap? What's happening? And one of the reasons that we found it was getting lost in translation is because I'm talking to you about your career, and the next minute I'm talking to you about numbers. So we really reinforced the fact that you have to have those as separate conversations. It's so critical. And there was like these are managers, many of whom had been managing people for a long time. Huge eye openers for them. So I think, we can't just assume that everybody knows how to coach, that everyone knows that, how to go through this process with someone. So we have to provide that information. And frankly, we have a leadership program. You can be a manager, but it's not a requirement. So it could be up and coming leaders. And having different levels in the group has always been very good. They learn from each other, which is great. And teaching them before they move into a leadership role, how the process of how to coach, what employees are looking for with regards to coaching and career development is really critical. And then allowing them the opportunity. One of the hallmarks of our program is that they have a development plan that they're working on, and they work with their manager to implement what they're learning. And so what they get to do is coach people before they become a manager. So they get to do that while they're in their current position. And I don't think we could have any better process.
That is an amazing process. Yeah. That is really an amazing process. You know what? And it's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that survey that you did. And I don't think that's uncommon.
No, I don't think so either.
I know, exactly. I mean, there's always a gap. Like the managers are like, but we talk about it. But that's so interesting that they incorporated into the whole meeting rather than let's get together and talk about career development. That's a really big light bulb moment right there, is that people have to separate them. Here's what we're talking about today. Nothing else. We'll talk about that other stuff later. Right now, this is all about you. I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, what a great process. Well, you know what? We have just a little bit more time. And so I'm going to go to our last slide here, which is based on what the conversation has been today. And I knew you all would bring some amazing information here. We started off by talking about the importance of hiring, right? Hiring right so that the people can complement the culture and add to the culture, not necessarily fit into the culture. And then when we do that, then we're more apt to retain the people who we want to retain, right? And then engage them, help them engage, help the leaders engage with the team, help the team engage with each other. So engagement. And then, of course, developing, right? We want to help people develop. We just heard from Michele that there's a gap, right? Most of the time there's a gap. So it sounds like we've talked about the equation, which means when we hire right, when then we retain and we engage and we develop, then we create a culture that's positive and provides empowerment. So with the last couple minutes that we have, and audience, really want you to chime in if you have a question. Let me open it up, because you might not have had an opportunity to share with each other about something that was said earlier. So we have a little bit of time. So what would anybody have anything else they want to add to this conversation?
I would love to, Michele. Yes, so I think one of the things that, from my experience, is to recommend it's a continuous assessment of everything. It's not just a one-time event.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and that we actually solicit feedback internally and externally so we can polish and continually improve in our business day to day. So I think it's very important to continually evolve and change along with the times.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm going to piggyback on what Helena just added. Companies should conduct surveys regularly with their team and just to be able to check in and monitor how their engagement is.
Yeah,
it's so important for our employees that are on the front lines doing the work that represent what you are as a business. It's so important to understand the nuances that they experience every day that may make a big difference in being a more successful business, having a more unique value proposition for your market, and just enhancing your employer brand, retaining your talent. It's so important to continue to be in touch with that.
Now I have a question. Yeah, so true, because it can't just be one time. Is there a guideline? Like, how often should you survey your team? Is there a guideline? Is it quarterly, monthly? What would you say as the experts who lead people to do these kind of things? What would you say is a good time frame? Once a quarter, once a month, twice a year? What's your thought on that?
I would say annually. If you start to do it more, Michele Bivens, I was hoping for your feedback on that as well.
Yes, I was going to say annually, and I do think because otherwise it gets lost, right? And people don't feel the value of it. But when it comes once a year, and if maybe you're giving some nice little prize or something to go along with that to increase the support, right? Because you really do want to hear what people have to say, but there's a lot coming at them from all places. And,
Okay.
you
That
have
was
to.
helpful. I've heard people say they get surveyed out, right? So that's good. Hey, before we go, we have a quick question here from Carl. So Carl said, agree with the concept of hiring slowly and firing quickly. So real quick, who wants to answer that? And then we have one more slide, then we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, Carl, for being here and asking that.
Yeah.
I like Carl's question.
Yes.
Carl, good to see you. He and I worked together previously, so it's wonderful to have you here. So the approach of hiring slowly and firing quickly, that strikes me as a European approach to employment.
Yes.
And our culture is just the opposite of that. We hire quickly, and then for termination to not come back on you, you want to make sure you have your documentation together. So sometimes that can feel like it's a slower, more laborious process. But my thought is when you have your onboarding processes, we were talking about your hiring and onboarding process involving your values and your culture, that process can start to move quicker than perhaps it might feel that it does without such a cohesive process outlined. It doesn't have to be a laborious hiring process. And then when it comes time to continually manage performance, and the contributions just aren't working out, that final meeting should be more of a mutual recognition that it's not working out. We've tried this, you've tried that, this just isn't working out. Doesn't mean you wouldn't be a great fit somewhere else. It doesn't have to be all on the manager's side of the fence to bear the burden. It should really be interactive.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Anita. Okay. Guess what? We're almost out of time. So can you put up a slide? Because here's what we know. We know that our panel has had some very good nuggets to share today. And we don't want the conversation to stop here. We want it to be able to continue, right? Just as we've been talking about, all of this is a continuous process. So we want to be able to encourage you to get in touch with us and there, I want you to be able to see our email information. So we've got Anita Nygaard at Core HR. We've got Michele Bivens at Farmers and Merchants Bank. And we've got Helena Ferrari, I might not have said that right, at HRRX. So, and then you've got me, Michelle Beauchamp. So really want to thank you all for joining us today. All of you on the panel, Helena, Anita, Michelle, I knew you would bring it, and you really did. So thank you for saying yes. Thank you for the benefit that you add to the cultures, the people who I know they really grow and benefit by the value and the knowledge that you bring. So I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for saying yes. And audience, we'll be talking more about this. And okay, Carl said hi to Helena and Anita.
Thank you, Carl. It was wonderful. I also worked with Carl years ago too.
Awesome.
Small world.
I know, small world, right? It is a small world. Well, listen, I know we're out of time, so I'm going to end our call. And again, thank you all so much for everything that you brought today. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Michelle.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.